A king, a priest, and a merchant are in a room, and there is a soldier in between them. And all three of the king, the priest, and the merchant are telling the soldier to kill the other. Who does the soldier listen to? It's whoever pays them. It's the merchant. Money wins every time. Money is greater than power. The pen is controlled by those who hold the sword, and the sword is controlled by money. That's not reality, though. We're not talking about trying to influence change right now. I'm talking about reflecting reality. You're saying the pen should be in place instead of the sword, while we're watching police just brutalizing people, absolutely brutalizing people. Now, I'm not saying you should go out and do violence. I'm not. You shouldn't. I legally could not, even if I wanted to, say that. But I am saying that I want the art to show the horrors and the atrocities that we have to live through. Look, I can show you this much of this video, and you tell me that influencing change through peaceful means is the way to make this happen. You think anyone gives a shit about peaceful means once they see this? They killed this man. They killed this man in a prison. We'll get to that next. Vast majority of these officers with legal authority to kill people are politically motivated. This is also true. So, Joseph Benza, 36, was charged December 17th with one felony count of deprivation of rights under the color of law for his involvement with an incident with then 23-year-old Emmett Brock. Benza and potentially additional employees had been relieved of duty, the Los Angeles County Sheriff said. Multiple sources within the department who requested to remain anonymous told the Los Angeles Times that at least 8 people were relieved of duty. They could not confirm how many employees were dismissed. Benza was responding to a potential domestic violence disturbance on February 10th. When Brock drove past him, gave him the middle finger, according to the plea agreement. Benza then abandoned the domestic violence call, followed Brock for 2 miles. When Brock pulled into a 7-Eleven, Benza parked behind him, activated his SUV's overhead lights for the first time. The former deputy then confronted Brock, body slammed into the ground, punched his head and face multiple times, pressed his face into the pavement. Brock yelled, "You're going to kill me, I can't breathe, please stop," during the attack, which left him with a concussion, bruising, cuts, caused vomiting, according to the plea agreement. They're doing violence against us, and we're not allowed to show it. I'm not saying you should do violence back, but I want to show the violence that exists in the art. I want real reality being depicted in what we see in our media, because the sanitized versions of it produce no change. When you have these sanitized versions, all you do is pretend everything's okay. We have to fight fire with fire. Violence does not weaken us. If nobody can fight fire with fire, we stay under. What do you think fighting fire with fire is? Who is that disabled prisoner that was left in the freezer? I don't know that one. It's so bad. The thing is, like, I agree with you, Anthony, to a large extent. But also, optically, we still need to show the violence. The violence is real. It exists. It affects everybody. You're outsmarting them. It doesn't work. They're all retards. We are smarter than them. It's not about outsmarting them. They don't believe in reality. It's about manipulating them. It's about forcing the change mentally through changing our rhetoric and adapting. What you're saying is what we've been trying to do for 8 years and has been failing. We have to grab some of their tactics and include them in ours. We just have to be moral about it while we do it. We don't have to be evil, but we need to use their tactics against them. Propagandize. That's propaganda. Showing that image is propaganda. Showing this image is outsmarting them and also using their tactics. Replacing this gun with a pen makes this useless. This is garbage then. You can just throw this away and it means nothing. It needs to reflect reality. We all need to watch Code Geass and learn about proper disruption. It's also my favorite anime. I've never seen it, but we can, you know what? Before we continue on with Robert Brooks, that's a good point. I just want to talk about I'm going to bring up an
Say
alt-right
for the
video, an alt-right playbook video. It ties into directly what we're talking about in optics.
Sake of argument, there's this feminist media critic whose work you respect.
Leviticus
1822.
Say, for the sake of argument, there's this feminist media critic whose work you respect. Being an internet-savvy human in the information age, you sometimes share your opinions of her work on your various social media platforms.
Remember, guys, these are very old videos, but they're still relevant.
And you've noticed, whenever you speak positively of her, many different people come out to yell the same handful of things at you. It usually starts with, how can you support that con woman after she stole thousands of dollars from people? And you say, no, she didn't steal anything. She ran a crowdfunding campaign that people contributed willingly to. And overwhelmingly, those people seem satisfied with their donations. And they say, yeah, she asked for $100,000.
The point of this video, by the way, is to never play defense. That should be our next thing that we adopt. Never play defense with these fuckers.
$1,000 for a shitty little project. And you say, no, she got $100,000 because people got excited about her work and gave her more than she asked for. But the original pitch was only $10K. Also, how many times have you given that number to people without looking it up? And they say, yeah, she asked for $10K and then never finished anything. And you say, no, she...
Again, pointing out that it's skipping half of what the response is. You can't fight fire with fire by educating them. You have to fight fire with fire by using these tactics, by going on the offense. And producing art is going on the offense.
Finished the project earlier this year. Of course it took longer than it was originally pitched. You get 10 times what you ask for, and you're kind of obligated to make a bigger project, because if you didn't, that would be running away with 90 grand. Now, by this time, you've noticed your interlocutor's position has changed from she stole from people to she asked too much to begin with to she took too long to deliver, as though these are all the same argument. And you also notice the pattern of the
They will constantly shift the goalpost every time. They will never stop shifting the goalpost. So by trying to peacefully, optically using peaceful imagery to change this does nothing. You have to be offensive. You have to break in through the barrier. You have to pass the woke filter, or else they don't care. Now, most of these people are too far gone to save, but some of them aren't, and this is how you save them, by using these tactics that they used for 8 years. This video is 7 years old. It's worked for them for 8 years. Use it against them. Watch these videos, learn from them, pick them up.
Conversation. He says something short, quippy, and wrong. You give a detailed correction. He says something else short, quippy, wrong, and only tangentially related to his last point, and the cycle repeats itself. This goes on and on. And it's not, you've noticed, just this discussion. You find this manner of argument often when you express left-of-center beliefs. You talk about the election, someone says you vote Democrat because you must have a conservative father you hate. You talk about polyamory, someone says if you have more than one female partner, you must be a sexist. Or they just say you're faking a non-regional accent.
No one believes in reality.
Yeah. The running theme here is all these people who ostensibly want a frank exchange of ideas spend a lot more time.
They don't believe in reality? It's because they don't see reality. We need reflective art so people see reality and engage with it by believing it. If they don't see the reality, then they won't understand it. It will take time. This entire thing is a complex system of steps to attain power. Exactly. And we need to use these systems to gain power. His last argument was not right. I mean, sorry, the orange guy, his argument is correct. The red guy is the retard. She did, by the way, produce larger content because she got 10 times more money. This is, I believe this is about, what's her name? Gamergate chick? Well, people gave her more money, and so she made the project bigger and took longer to produce it because it was a bigger project. Like, he's right. The orange guy is correct.
Time making accusations than asking questions. Because why ask what you believe when they can tell you?
Well, that's the point, NetFox. Of course the red guy's winning. Because that's how this works. He's not, the red guy is wrong about everything, and yet he wins. Why?
More time making accusations than asking questions. Because why ask what you believe when they can tell you what you believe and make you correct them? And if you ever don't go to the trouble of correcting them, Must be because they're right. And you're
Power is the ability to hold the threat of violence over a group. That's what it is. Control over any socioeconomic group is power. And the threat of violence is what keeps the government in power.
not naive. You see what's
Every
going
government.
on here. This isn't about conversation. No, this is about boxes. When you say something cogent that they don't agree with, and they get the sinking feeling that you might start making sense, they need a reason not to listen to you.
You're doing exactly what the red guy's doing. You're doing this right now.
Feeling that you might start making sense, they need a reason not to listen to you. So they reach for a box to stick you in. Dishonest feminism, fake progressivism, daddy issue liberalism. No one in those boxes is worth listening to. Which means, as long as they've got you in one, they're not at risk of having their minds changed. This whole thing isn't even an argument with you. Not really. They're presenting themselves with arguments for why they don't have to listen to you. So your first reflex is to defy their expectations. Actually, my dad was a draft-dodging hippie who told me he loved me every day. And I never said what genders my partners are, but I promise they're all feminists. As for my accent, actually, I don't know what to do with the accent thing, but the point is...
learn from the red guy. He's cleaning house because he's lying. I'm telling you, learn from the red guy. Use these tactics against the right. This is what they do against us. I refuse to fit in your box. And if they can't put you in one, if they can't dismiss you outright, they'll have to engage with your argument. But if you've spent any time arguing with angry dudes online, and it is mostly dudes, you know what I'm about to say. They don't. This accusatory, condescending attitude never falters, because a technique that has permeated anti-progressivism is to never play defense. Now don't get me wrong, what I said about the right fitting the left into on the offense.
Simplified boxes as a way of preserving their own egos, I do think that's a thing, at least for many people much of the time. And I think the reassurance it brings is why the technique stays so popular. But that framing is about how individual people are feeling in isolated moments, and leaves out the larger game that's being played. Because there is a long-term strategic value to never playing defense, and it's less to do with arguments than with attitude. From your perspective,
this is why, by the way, when I say debates are a blood sport, and who wins the debate isn't who's right, this is what I mean.
Debate about the feminist is a joke. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He comes in hot without confirming any of his...
I sent my liberal mom the never play defense video, and she literally said, no, I will play defense. I just have to argue like that character from the West Wing. Jesus Christ. That's so sad, Alter Boy. That's liberals for you.
Assumptions. The whole conversation is you repeatedly schooling an ignorant dipshit. But that's only if you're the fool who listens to what's actually being said. Never play defense is a strategy that looks past language to posture. The tone, the word choice, even the expressions on your faces.
Is why red
if
wins.
You half focus your eyes and look not at the words, but at the flow of the conversation, you can see the dynamic at play. He says his short, quippy statement, and you give your detailed rebuttal. He then picks a single point from your response and attacks that as the new subject. Yeah. Now, to an onlooker, the logical brain would register that he's leaving...
That's why you don't feed the trolls.
90% of your argument on the table, and that by changing positions, he's conceding he lost the first round. But the lizard brain notices that he's always making the accusations, always in the dominant position, that he's always acting, and you're always reacting. Regardless of what is...
This is the case. This is exactly what you were talking about, Nepfox, as in learn from this. The posturing is more important. Again, we don't live in a reality where half of America doesn't believe in reality. They believe what they're told. Elon Musk says if you see it anywhere other than on X, it's fake news. So, like, they don't believe science, data, anything, really, unless it comes from one of their master's mouths. So how do you fight against that? You play offense. You make accusations and make them defend. Use the strategy of say some bullshit. Call Elon Musk a communist. Call Donald Trump a communist. Make them go on the defense. Pick out one thing that they say and troll them. This is how they won. For years, this is what they've done. Don't argue against the people that do this to you. If they're wrong, they're idiots. Move on. Go make fun of them and put them on the defense.
said, he displays all the outward signs of winning. So on a purely emotional level, he leaves the impression of being right. And I have never had an argument look like this that wasn't in public. This is a technique that means speaking not so much to the other person as to the people watching. Liberals tend to operate as though voters are beings of
right-wingers have done any Trump debate. You can see this exact tactic.
Pure reason, and neglect that rational people still have emotions, and those emotions factor into what they believe. And that long after this argument is over, when people only half remember what was said, what lingers on is what impressions the speakers made. Ronald Reagan coined the phrase,
be Anthony. They can't read. They're all like illiterate. Go on Reddit/teachers and go look, and you'll lose all hope you have for Gen Alpha. These are authoritarian tactics. I don't think we should use them on the left. No, they're not authoritarian tactics at all. They're not. These are propagandistic tactics, and the tactics themselves are neutral. It's how they're employed. Now, should we employ them against the left? No, but employing them against the right is necessary. You can't think about Aang in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Guy is a monk, guy is a pacifist. He still has to fight in the end against the people who don't stop. This is integrating and adapting so the left survives. I don't think we should lie. I don't think you should be immoral about it. Try and do it as best you can. And sometimes, you know, if you're morally fine with lying to right-wingers to trick them into believing reality, go for it. I don't care. I don't think that's immoral. If you don't want to lie, don't lie. Use this tactic with your integrity. Add it in there. You can do both. It's not an authoritarian tactic. This is just propaganda. And propaganda isn't good or bad. It's just employed in a certain way.
Phrase, if you're explaining, you're losing.
That's
the
what
trick
they
is,
believe.
if he's always...
That's what Ronald Reagan said, and that's what the right wing believes. So use it. Use it for good. You can use tactics that are often employed for negative outcomes, for evil, for good. Use it against these people.
What lingers on is what impressions the speakers made. Ronald Reagan coined the phrase, if you're explaining, you're losing. The trick is, if he's always accusing, then you're always explaining. This technique of winning by looking like you're winning isn't new, and historically, it's been used by both parties. But modern liberals seem especially susceptible to it because it plays on one of their big weaknesses, which is, and I say this with love, the liberal fantasy of putting someone in their place.
This is true. We always want to be right, and we know that we're right. We know that the other side are a bunch of, like, window lickers, but you want to be right. Trevor Noah is not, that's the thing. I don't think he's amazing. I think he's all right. He's a liberal. I don't even think Jon Stewart is amazing. I think he's also all right. I think he's better than Trevor Noah. Not in, like, the comedy or running the show kind of way. I mean, as in, like, on the political spectrum. These are liberals. They're not leftists. They haven't crossed the border, so to say.
Anytime a free speech
so they fall into this trap.
Fantasy of putting someone in their place. Anytime a free speech warrior gets the Bill of Rights quoted to them when racists get historical accuracy explained by an actual historian, liberals take screen caps. We put it...
I like Jon Stewart and I like Noam Chomsky. And Noam Chomsky is persuasive because you're not an idiot. Remember, 65% of America is functionally illiterate. They can't read a Harry Potter book and envision what's going on in their minds. The simplest text, like I'm thinking like 6th grade level text, 4th Harry Potter book. They can't read that. They can't. And so explaining facts to them will not win anything because they don't believe in facts. If you say a fact, they'll say, where did you get it? And you'll say an institution, and they'll say that's fake news. No matter what institution it is, it doesn't matter. They'll ask you for PhD level data to prove your fact when they're not able to read. They can't, let alone the PhD level data, they just can't fucking read. You can't fight them with facts. You have to fight dirty. If you don't want to fight dirty, then you've already lost. I'm sorry. A lot of anti-feminist content works on the strategy of conflating social ostracization with systemic oppression. Yes. Use these tactics. The systemic oppression does produce social ostracization. However, it's not feminism that's at play here. It's social media that causes this. So use it. Both. They can read the words, but they don't comprehend them, Anthony. That's what functionally illiterate means. Now, Alpha is illiterate, not just functionally illiterate. 65% of American adults are functionally illiterate. They can read words, but they can't comprehend them. You can't write a story and have them, they couldn't read and comprehend Charlotte's Web, a book that I read in 4th grade for school. They would not be able to read that book and understand what happened in it, let alone the themes of it, but just the book. I'm honestly jealous of all the conservative people I know because they don't have to think about their lives as much. Don't be jealous, Altar Boy. They're all just as miserable. They just don't know it. And so they're miserable and they're angry at things that they don't know. They just react outwardly at anything because they are just as miserable. They just don't know where to point it to. Why do we allow them to vote? I mean, to be fair, we don't have any power, so.
It on Storify. We pass that shit around like it's theater popcorn. We live for the day an ignorant prick gets dunked on. I remind you, this was the central conceit of an entire TV show.
I don't say homosexuality is an...
Altar Boy, you brought up The West Wing.
We live for the day an ignorant prick gets dunked on.
I never said that. Don't put words in my mouth, Netfox. You always fucking do this. I will ban you.
I remind you, this was the central conceit of an entire TV show.
I don't say homosexuality is an abomination, Mr. President. The Bible does.
Yes, it does. Leviticus
18:22.
chapter and verse. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions while I had you here. I'm interested in selling my youngest daughter into slavery as sanctioned in Exodus 21:7. What would a good price for her be? Does the whole town really have to be together to stone my brother John for planting different crops side by side? Can I burn my mother in a small family gathering for wearing garments made from 2 different threads? Think about those questions, would you?
This is not going to convince anybody. What I want is mandatory voting for everybody. I want everyone to legally have to vote. I don't care if they don't comprehend this. The plan is to get them to comprehend it over time. Dogs and cats can't read and they seem pretty happy and there is ignorance and joy. This is true when you're not a tool, a cog in the capitalist system. Dogs don't have to go and do labor all day for billionaires. Cats don't have to go do labor all day for billionaires. They get to sit and be happy.
One last thing. While you may be mistaking this for your monthly meeting of the ignorant...
Our voting system in Australia is nice. We have mandatory and preferential voting, which I would like to employ in America, but our government is just as fucked. I just put out a new video on the subject. I want everyone to have to vote. Yes, that's democracy. Some people are retards. They still have the right and have to vote.
Tight-ass club. In this
Fix
building
that
when
issue.
the president stands.
The issue isn't voting. The issue is they're too stupid. So fix it. I can't play that because it's copyright music.
The reason scenes like this are so satisfying is precisely because they activate the emotions. They present a world where giving a detailed explanation looks like winning, and where having one given to you looks like losing. Everyone wants to be Joseph Welch telling off McCarthy.
At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
But the right has learned that if you never look like you're losing, you can convince a lot of people that you're not. And if you keep your statements short and punchy, people will remember what you said better than they remember the long explanation for why it's untrue. If done correctly...
As in, the rich lie to you and they hate you. And they use you and your emotions and your anger to control you. That's it. It's just that simple. Don't play defense, go on the offense, and produce this effect in them.
You might even convince yourself that you know what you're talking about. Now, again, this is not exclusive to the right. This is how most teenagers argue, regardless of their politics, where it's less important to be right than it is to be better than someone.
Yeah,
but
voting day
mixed
should be a
with
public
control the
holiday.
conversation, see previous video, the right has a full-bodied cocktail for manipulating how the left argues. But where it gets...
Also, see previous video, I also covered the control the conversation video.
Dangerous is in how the alt-right has capitalized on this. This argument isn't just about sticking a woman in the lying feminism box so she doesn't have to be listened to. It's also signaling to anyone watching what box they should stick her in. Even if an onlooker recognizes that she literally did not con anyone out of their money. The idea that how much she asked for or how long she took to deliver are relevant to her credibility is still planted in their heads. It subtly suggests that the next time they feel threatened by
Good guy Dari, you might not actually be an anti-feminist then. You might just be thinking you are because the other people that you watch are retards. And I'm not. I see a lot of authoritarian leftists use these tactics to own people who disagree with them, and it's very culty, childish behavior. You shouldn't use this against the left. This is tactics to be employed against only the right. And unfortunately, yeah, we do have a lot of idiots on the left too. And there are authoritarian leftists. I'm not one. I believe in liberty. I'm closer to I'm a libertarian socialist, so I'm closer to anarchist than I am socialist. I am still a socialist, so I'm not a full anarchist. But I believe that you shouldn't have control, power, any system of control, power, oppression over other human beings needs to be justified by the people exhibiting that control, power, or oppression, and if they fail to do so, it should be dismantled. However, that's in an ideal world. We don't live in the ideal world. We live fighting against oligarchic fascism. And so we need to employ tactics that are authoritarian to fight the authoritarians. It's not fascist to kill all the Nazis, for example. It would not have been morally bad for the Nuremberg trials to sentence every Nazi to death. Why am I losing? Because we're not loud enough, and because a lot of people are too dumb to understand cooperative systems of engagement and think that someone needs to be in power, that we need a state. Like you believe that we need a state. I don't. And also, you're losing too, motherfucker. I think the reason so many people like Andrew Tate and Hassan debate was because Tate looked like he was losing. That matters much more. Well, yeah, debates are a blood sport. It's gladiator fighting. You win not based on who wins, but based on who seems to win. Isn't it conflicting if you want freedom for everybody, but you believe absolute majority of people isn't able to comprehend? Well, at the moment, yeah, but my goal is a long-term goal that I've talked about that we can't have in my lifetime. You need to build the systems to get there. You do, Anthony. You change the rules with everybody else. It's direct democracy. I've talked about this before, and I do believe in the general public. I just believe that right now they are purposefully indoctrinated and made stupid. I don't think libertarian socialism can be enacted in my lifetime. That's still my ideology. I'm still right.
Female media critic. Maybe they should look at how much money she makes, how long her work takes to produce. Maybe they don't have to listen to her because they've got this handy box.
What do you mean algorithms?
So what's most valuable to the alt-right isn't who wins or loses any individual arguments. It's the mechanics of the argument itself. It's the boxes.
Cat thrower, the lives of a lot of people would have been worse no matter who won in this election. It's just a lot more people's lives are going to be worse because of it. Okay, you believe that states are stupid, Lennon, but at the very least, you still believe in power structure, in hierarchy. You think that there needs to be someone in charge, and I think that we can have cooperative engagement where nobody's in charge, where there is a bureaucracy superstructure that is disconnected and decentralized and has no power, exists only to engage and communicate with other decentralized city-state-esque land pieces, and the people of those communities as a whole combined make relevant decisions that affect everybody, and people in those communities make decisions that affect those communities. It's cooperative, it's direct democracy.
Over the last several years, the far right has pushed hard on a number of reductive categories. The cultural Marxism box, the reverse racism box, even terms like beta and mangina are just shorthands for the failed masculinity box. The alt-right is a veritable box factory, putting huge swaths of leftist rhetoric, most especially that would rebut their core positions, into categories where they can be summarily ignored. And these myths have power if and only if they are immediately recognizable to a lot of people. And one function of this aggressive posturing is that—
that's the thing. Neither the Democrats nor the Republicans work for you. The Republicans and the Democrats both want to make your lives worse for the benefit of the rich, the capital class. The Democrats just are slower about it, and the Republicans press the gas pedal all the way down. That's the only difference. Neither of them work for you. The issue isn't top down, we need change. You need to make change from the bottom up. What is Orwell doing here? Orwell should be here the whole time.
That they
Have you
want
not noticed the right wing is speaking newspeak, guys?
lot of people. And one function of this aggressive posturing is that they want to provoke an argument. To be so pompous that you
Not a
are
bad idea,
itching
Alter Boy.
to publicly take this asshole down.
Join the
which
Discord. We can brainstorm some. That's not a bad idea.
gives that asshole access
Better
to
than
your
Nazi.
followers. It's about them introducing a myth to your audience and reinforcing that myth for theirs. And that myth gets spread even when you feel like you're winning.
And to top this off, in relation to your Blitz Workshop box ideas, we call these people Nazis and fascists, and it makes them feel good about themselves. They like being called Nazis. They like being called fascists. They like being scary. They like being the villain in the movie. They want to be the Joker. So call them cringe, call them weak, emasculate them, and make them feel like they want to hide. That's how you fight these people. Anarchism is flawed. It would fall apart. I do agree this. I don't think you need a centralized entity. I think you could do this through a decentralized bureaucratic superstructure that has no power in and of itself, but can function as an emergency communication method between the decentralized states and organized people. So we do box them, calling them Nazis, but they also are Nazis. They do believe in the same things Nazis believed, but we need to stop calling them Nazis because it makes them feel good when we call them that. Whether it's correct or not doesn't matter. I'd rather call them commies than Nazis because they'll at least get mad at that. It doesn't have to be true. It just has to be not immoral.
I can't tell you the best way to deal with this, but I do know one way, which is to keep control of your own story. When someone comes out the gate with accusations, it's a big red flag that they are not arguing in good faith, which means you are not required to argue with them. When someone says something untrue, you can just tell your audience what the truth is without acknowledging the lie or the one repeating it. A detailed explanation does land a lot better when it's not being contrasted with a soundbite. Decide for yourself how your audience gets acquainted with a popular fiction, and never be too proud to delete a comment. In this political
Use these tactics. If a leftist hierarchy can circumstantially justify itself, then it is what it is so long as social dependency remains a two-way street. If that becomes a problem, then aesthetically one side has more genuine swag. I'm confident in that. I suppose, yeah. Look, my real main gripes is the removal of capital needs to happen. You can't switch to socialism by having state state socialism. You can't have market socialism. You have to remove capital entirely all at once. Money's gone. Private property, gone. Capital, gone entirely. On top of this, I think the overall goal of the left should be to dissolve as the left. The goal should be to no longer need a left, to produce a cooperative environment where we are all the proletariat. The only people that we are fighting against is the rich, who's making us fight against each other. There are 1,000 billionaires in America, and they are the only issue. They are your biggest enemy. Where is it? On my wall? I don't know if you can see it. Right there. The only dangerous minority is the rich. It went away in Leninist theory. It didn't go away in Leninist reality. Lenin. That's kind of the issue. All right. Now, after we understand this, of controlling the conversation, of never playing defense, I need you to absorb all of this.